Welcome to the Present and Sober podcast with your hosts, Sam Goldfinch and Ellie Crow. If you want to make your life bigger, not smaller, then this is the podcast for you. If you can sense that you're destined for more and you're curious about how drinking could be holding you back, listen in and come on this journey with us. Through the interplay of mind and body practices, we will help you elevate your daily life and discover the wonder and potential of going alcohol-free. Let's make life bigger together. This episode of the Present and Sober podcast is sponsored by the Rebel Spirituality podcast. Obviously, it's not, but I am in charge of these intros because Ellie won't let me be in charge of the other intro that comes shortly after this. So what with the fact that I'm in charge, I thought, well, why not give myself a shout out? So yeah, if anyone hasn't yet, there's a solo cast I'm running that you'd be very welcome to come and check out. Seems to be about 6 or 7 minutes a week, so it's not a huge investment of time, and I'm hoping that there's some really cool stuff in there and reflections in there that really help you through the week. So if you'd love something short and sharp, that makes sense, to dovetail with what we're up to here, go check it out. The link is in the show notes. Now, today we're talking about the pink cloud and what is it? WTF, the pink cloud. For some reason there I found it difficult to swear. I seem to have no problem swearing in the actual podcast. I must have some kind of filter on for this bit of it. But yeah, really good, really good conversation, really interesting. And yeah, I don't think I've got much else to say really. So I hope wherever you are, you're having the most amazing summer. Yeah, that's it. See you on the show.
So Mr. Sam he's confirmed he is going to be giving us the Japanese rendition of You Can Go Your Own Way. So stay tuned until the end of this podcast.
Hang on a minute. You sound echoey now. What's going on? Say hello.
Is that better?
Yeah. What were you doing?
I have my mic too far away. It's fucking rookie error. I know, I'm so unprofessional.
Now it's really close, isn't it? Because now your face is really bigger than normal.
I don't know why my face has gone big.
Because you put it in the Zoom does this. You were close to the camera, I think.
Well, then it just get really big if you do that.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Stay tuned. Sam's going to sing for us at the end, and you don't want to miss it.
It's not happening.
It's a real treat. And we need some more reviews, folks. I was looking forward to a really fanciful review today, and
people did put effort in, didn't they? It's good.
I've not been furnished with one today, so reviews, please, folks.
Sort it out.
Yeah, there are people that have promised reviews that haven't yet got round to it, and
Callywags.
We're keeping an eye on you, and we know where you live, sort of.
We know what continent you're in.
Yeah.
Watch out. We're going to set the magpies on you. When I was in Australia, I used to do this about a 10k run. And at a certain time of year, the magpies, like nesting season or whatever you call it, those motherfuckers, they used to dive bomb the shit out of me. And it was pretty scary. They used to come at me.
Yeah, they do.
And then they were like, when they were about a foot away from my head, they'd pull out.
Yeah.
And I'd be like,
chips.
Oh my God.
My mum, we have like a family WhatsApp group chat, and my mum was on the North Welsh coast having a little seaside break, and she kept sending us pictures of these seagulls that she'd named that would basically sit on her sash windowsill and poke their beak through the curtains to open the curtains to tell my mum and her husband that they wanted feeding. And my mum was feeding them cheese sandwiches. So, there was a whole gang of them at the end. And I was in London. I had the fortunate experience of being in London with my friend for a couple of days, which was lovely. And we were walking down one of the streets in South Kensington, and my friend went, "Look at that." And this guy walked past us, and he had two fucking massive blue macaws, one on each shoulder. And I was like, shit. So I took a picture of it, sent it to the WhatsApp group, and I said, I take your seagulls and raise them to macaws. And my mum went, I don't know what you mean.
Macaw?
Everybody else got it, but there we go. So
very good.
Yeah.
When I went to Porto with Rob a few weeks back. There were these. Came out this hipster clothes shop. Do love some clothes, and there were these two seagulls on top of this car. Just like, and there were people taking pictures of them. I was like, what's going on here? And we went for like a walk for ages. We came back. They were still there. There was different people taking pictures of them. They were just like basking in the glory or whatever.
They're laid down.
They were on this car, just on top of this car, and there was obviously quite a cool view behind it. They weren't lying down. No, they were standing on their feet.
They meant like they were properly sunbathing.
No, sadly not. Yeah, that story wasn't anything like as cool as I thought it was going to be when I started telling it. Your story was cooler.
It's a bit like the bin shoot story, isn't it?
Don't feed cheese sandwiches to seagulls, though. Not unless you want.
Well, you're gonna have to have a word with Mrs. What shall I call her mum? Ellie's mum. You're gonna have to have a chat with her about it.
Mrs. Ellie's mum.
Mrs. Ellie's mum.
Right. Should we talk about this bloody pink cloud thing? Because I don't think you've even mentioned it.
Well, you just spoiled it now. I was just about to say that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the pink cloud. And the best thing about this conversation is Sam and I have got no fucking idea what it is. Well, sort of. Anyway,
we've got
we've got an idea about what it is. It's interesting because I've over the years I've heard it, referenced by different people on different occasions, and they say, "Oh well, it's just a pink cloud, isn't it? It's gonna go at some point." I'm like, well, what? What do you mean it's just gonna go at some point? Generally, people are saying things like, "Oh, I feel really good, feel amazing." Oh well, it's just a pink cloud, isn't it? And I'm like, well, I don't see this pink cloud situation. So anyway, we wanted to talk about it today because in sobriety circles, no doubt you'll hear it at some point, and you might have the same reaction that Sam and I had. What the fuck is that?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think, well, just to be clear, I guess we can have some guesses of what we think might be going on and talk about our experiences and stuff. But I wonder whether how helpful it is for us and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be an interesting chat because people do talk about it a lot. And I remember, I'm going to save it for later. I'm going to write a little note down because it's lovely what I'm going to say.
Look forward to that.
I've written it down, but I can't spell it, so I'll
say
it's phonetic though. Like I can read it, so that's okay. So where should we begin, Ellie Crow?
Where should we begin? Well, perhaps we should talk about why we think, because we're making some assumptions, why we think it comes up. Might be a good place to start.
Here are my guesses. You ready for this?
Yeah, go.
Oh, you're ready for this. Right. Number one, when we're drinking and it's shit and we're experiencing that every day and then we stop, there's a lot of, for me, there was often relief involved in that. I was like, oh, thank God I'm not in that cycle, feeling horrible all the time, waking up feeling terrible. There's the detoxification. After a little while, my sleep would be improving and all that kind of stuff. And I would just I was closer to the pain of what it was like to be in that experience. And then I wasn't in it. So I was kind of like, thank God, there wasn't any fading effect bias. We've kind of spoken about that before, but there was at that point in time, there was just, thank God I'm free. Why would I ever go back there? That's amazing. That's just such a wonderful place to be. And then, as life goes on and as we sort of move away and further away from that, we can start questioning, was it that bad? We start to heal from it. We start to sometimes kind of question like what it was actually like. So that's one guess as to what's going on for some people. Like I definitely felt a lot of that. A lot of my process of stopping drinking was what I describe as on-off drinking. And when I would go through a period of stopping, because the only way I knew how to stop back then was to make it so bad I didn't have any other option. When I did stop, it would be like oh God. And I'd sort of bask in the feeling of that for a little while. Not all, like often the first few days, by the way, obviously you'd have some kind of like disruption of alcohol leaving the system and all that kind of stuff. But quite quickly, I'd start to really feel big differences. I'd start to feel a lot better. Neurology, physiology, kind of recalibrating and feeling nice. And I don't know. So that's one thing that I think is going on. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I totally agree with you that I hadn't taken lots of breaks from alcohol. I'd taken very small mini breaks, like not drinking for a couple of days and then starting again.
Mm.
And when you drink in that sort of way, even if you manage to only drink on weekends, you've always got alcohol circulating in the system. So you've always got that, the physiological effects going on. You're in a sort of a constant state of detox and retox. So you're never going to feel amazing. And so when I took a break from alcohol with the alcohol experiment, it was the first time I'd ever taken a substantial period of time off. And not only was I taking a break, but I felt really good about it because I wasn't carrying all these false beliefs around anymore. So I had no desire to drink. So it felt really easy to not drink. And I really loved the experience. And so then you add on to that the physical benefits that you feel quite quickly, quite rapidly. You just feel better and better and better. And I was just like on an absolute high with it, just really just loving the whole experience. I got halfway through and decided I wanted to be a coach. And I remember at one point when I was applying to be a coach thinking, well, this is mad. You've only been alcohol free for like a few weeks and here you are like, who the hell do you think you are? But I just knew. And so I remember hearing people refer to the pink cloud, but I didn't pay any attention to it because it didn't make any sense to me, because what I was feeling didn't feel like some illusion. It didn't feel like it was transient, in that it was attached to a particular thing. It was the entirety of my, like, what was happening. That's it. And there's no doubt that there's an ebb and flow with that, and that emotions transmute, become something else. But I didn't feel like I was in this stage that was about to be kind of like snatched away from me. And and the funny thing is, when I heard people talking about, oh, that's just the pink cloud, then kind of diminishing somebody else's experience, then the interesting thing is, if you then start fearing that what you're experiencing is the pink cloud and it's going to dissipate and it's going to go away, then you're undermining your experience as it is. So if it's all about like, oh, I'm really enjoying this experience, oh, hang on a minute, it's only the pink cloud, therefore it's going to go away. Oh, I'll now feel really miserable about it. As opposed to, this is just my experience. And fundamentally, what was going on, what was underlying, is that I was in the process of that reconnection back with self. And so I remember, oh my goodness, there's a couple of, I wish I knew what birds were now, because there's the most beautiful little black and white bird out with the robin friend outside. And I don't know what bird it is.
Zebra
Hello.
bird.
It doesn't look like a zebra. It's like it's the same size as robin, and it's black and white.
Yes, that's
Beautiful.
a zebra bird, that.
Is it?
Yeah.
A zebra finch.
Yeah.
No, I was getting back in touch with those the states that are absolutely, us at our core. Like I've often said about feeling joy for the first time, childlike joy. But it's not that that's gone anywhere. That's our natural state. It's obscured. So I think I kind of get where the whole pink cloud thing comes from, but I think it's, as with everything, I suppose, it's the way that you're looking at it.
Well, I think, as with anything, where I think the same is true of pause and things like that, so post-acute withdrawal syndrome, so I can look back on my kind of story, to use a very interesting word, and we'll break that open in a minute, because depending on the story that we have, you make a very interesting point, which is if you start panicking that this thing's going to go away because you've been told it's going to go away, then, you know, you start feeling that. You start feeling a story about it going to go away, and then you kind of innocently, you know, can start thinking, oh God, it's happening now, kind of stuff. And it's much more powerful to just be where you are in the moment and just be experiencing life as life, rather than the story of being in the pink cloud or the pink cloud going or any of that kind of stuff. But whether there is like a neurological, physiological reality to alcohol leaving the system, and patterns, which we're going to talk about today, because it looks to me like there are patterns that people go through, and we have different names for them. The question, I guess, is it helpful? And I didn't have a concept of the pink cloud in terms of like a thought form. I might have read it in a couple of things, but it wasn't sort of on my mind. I was aware that I would feel these sort of feelings of elation, and then at some point life would happen and I'd get different feelings, and things would start to kind of plateau and level out a little bit. And that just looks like how it works, right? Across the board. So that's how things go. When we first start doing things, they're incredibly exciting, and then they tend to plateau a little bit, and then it's a different part of the journey, which is why a lot of the time when we sort of start doing something like learning to do something new, hanging out, being consistent and hanging out in the sort of plateau part of that is one of the keys to actually becoming a master of something. Because actually what many of us do, myself included, a lot throughout life, is sort of jump ship at that point. And I did that a lot with alcohol as well. I was like, oh God, like I'll feel like this forever. I'll feel flat forever. But I can remember that 18 months away from alcohol when I had that, way back now. I didn't really have that concept. Some weeks I would notice I felt a bit flat. Sometimes I'd be really feeling really high on life and just remembering how amazing it was. And even with things like, you know, how amazing the morning is these days, it's very easy to kind of just kind of get up and perhaps sort of just be caught in some thinking or whatever it is going on, and forget how amazing it is to just wake up at 6 a.m. and just feel good, right? So I, even now these days, 8 years in, something I do quite often is kind of just sit there. And if I'm going to sit for just 10 minutes in the morning and meditate, or just be, or just whatever it might be, is just remind myself of like, oh, isn't this incredible? That this, because it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that stuff. So some of it is just the natural kind of ebb and flow of something being new, and then something kind of settling in and becoming the norm. And yeah. I wonder whether, see, I also didn't have any kind of concept or ideas around, you know, pause and things like that. I don't know whether I experienced them or not. I definitely had days and weeks where I felt more dysregulated, where where I just sort of didn't feel quite right. But I was kind of just, it's like, yeah, okay, this is part of it. This is part of life. And one of the big things I noticed is that, and this is sort of the maybe the number two big thing that my guess as to what's going on for a lot of people, is that we go through the detoxification process, we go through the kind of relief of finding freedom and all that kind of stuff. And then at some point, there's a knock on the door, which is kind of the, hey, there's something to look at. So, you know, what were all the reasons why it was making sense for you to drink like that? And very often it's feelings, and then that's a new stage in the journey. And that can be, that can perhaps feel like we're going backwards a bit to some people, because suddenly a bunch of feelings come up and they're thinking, oh my goodness me. But that's just a really beautiful part of the journey as well. And as it looks to me, and I think we've spoken about this a lot, mate, is like a really powerful part of the journey to freedom is learning that it's safe to feel our feelings and be with our emotions. And that's a bit like launching a rocket as well. A lot of energy at the beginning. We may be asked to feel a lot, and then these things start to kind of settle a bit more. And then so yeah, I don't know if I think there's probably an element of that going on for people as well, is the kind of facing those things as they come up. And it looks to me like those things often don't come up straight away at the beginning. They come up when we're ready for them, a bit later down the line, maybe.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And we speak every day to people that are conscious of the fact that there are things that they've avoided for a long time, and have that, you know, underlying fear of going there. And so it's a very, very real thing. But what I'd want everybody to know is that it will appear for you at the time that makes sense, at a time that you're ready for it.
Yeah.
It all comes at a pace that you can handle. And, I'm all for, and we're all for people experiencing discomfort to grow, but you're in charge of modulating that. Like, you don't have to go and, take yourself on some like really extreme, there's all sorts of modalities and different things that you can get involved in, but you don't have to go and do them, and you don't have to go and do them all at once. Being very much guided by what feels right to you at any one time, irrespective of what somebody else is doing, but what feels right for you, and taking it at a pace that you can handle, that is respectful of the nervous system. Not sort of we're going to be dysregulated to a degree, but you don't want to exacerbate that. You don't want to make it any worse than it needs to be, because that has a big effect on you. Your general sort of like sense of and feeling of well-being. But this stuff, I've said so many times, I believe it comes to us when we're ready to handle it. And so there may be a sense of like a not necessarily a delay, because it's not like I was just thinking, like, it's not like, in some respects I kind of knew it was coming, but then I didn't know it was coming, and then it was there, if that makes any sense. And when it was there, I had a sense of like, oh shit, right, wouldn't it be nice to numb this away right now? But then hang on, that's what I've done for so many years, and here it all is as fresh as a daisy. So what's my other alternative? Well, my other alternative is to feel it. And in that moment, I knew two things. One, it will pass. It will change. It's not going to stay like that forever. And secondly, I'm okay. Like, I might not feel okay, but I am okay. I can include the whole lot.
Yeah, that's it. You're psychologically safe.
Mm.
So it's funny because it looks to me like, hang on a minute. Can you hear me? Thought my mic went funny there. Sorry. It looks to me that this is going to sound bleeding, like completely obvious, but it looks like how it works. The moment that you have an insight in and around being able to feel, or that it's, that's when those things often knock. And so they're kind of, it looks like at one level, it's absolutely true. We know when it's time and when we're ready to feel those things. But of course we do, because that's when we have an insight in and around it. We understand that we've been doing the best we can with the thinking we've got, and the best we've been up to is to hold that stuff down because we've been afraid of it. And then suddenly we hear on a podcast, or we have an insight, or somebody think, hang on a minute, actually, maybe the way through this is through this. And then suddenly we hear the knock. And that's, it sounds outrageously simple, but it kind of looks like it works that way. And it looks to me that, I think I once wrote a blog post about, it's funny now, I'm getting a memory. I wrote a blog post and I did write about the pink cloud. But what I basically said was, I feel like I never went through the pink cloud because I didn't have that as a story. I didn't have that as a concept. I just went through whatever. But I did arrive in this place where suddenly life was in Technicolor. Now that was, and we've spoken about that before, and that happened on the other side of a lot of feeling and healing and that kind of stuff. And so I kind of think I wrote on the blog post, that pink cloud, if it were one, I just woke up and it was Technicolor. It wasn't, because I think a lot of the people, they think, oh my God, that's is that the best I'm ever going to feel then? And that's going to then go away. But we've been built for reality. We've been built to feel incredible and access wonderful states of being without the need for any kind of without the need to imbibe any kind of substance. And that can feel like something that's not true for us, or something that feels so far away, or something we can feel like we've never felt, or we have to go back into our kind of like early teens or as a kid to be able to sort of find those spaces where we remember connecting back to that space. But it's there in all of us. It's like you said, it's the backdrop. It's just the recognition of who you really are, which is it can't go anywhere. It's just there behind everything else, no matter what's been happening for you. And accessing that and being able to feel it, and a more felt experience of that, is one of the most amazing gifts. And I think welcome the discomfort, because part of the magic of living an incredibly free life, as it looks to me, is not about trying to remove all the discomfort from our life. That is it's an impossible game. So it's a game that we're sold by the powers that be, because it's a fantastic belief system for selling shit and getting that kind of stuff. But it's not reality. It's not how it works. How it really works is, because actually this is cool. The other day I was with some friends and someone asked a really great question, and it was if you could, it was quite funny. We were just having a chat around the campfire. If you could basically come up with any kind of potion that could do any one thing in the world, what would it be? And I thought to myself, that's a really interesting question, because without knowing it, the answer to that is it says a lot about how somebody relates to the world and what they see. And someone said I would have a potion that completely removed my anxiety. I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what I was up to. That's exactly what I would have said. And I realized in that moment, and I did say to them, I said, yeah, but it's interesting, because actually the real secret source is not in removing anxiety, because it's there for a reason. It's not bad. We wouldn't want to remove it off the menu. You can see, moments in life where it might be useful for a moment, and then problem is we get stuck in it, right? The real thing is knowing that we're okay, even when, being comfortable in the fact that we're uncomfortable. That's the real magic. That's the potion. And that's available. You don't need to be in some kind of hypothetical land where you're drinking some witch's brew in order to access that. That's a thing. And that comes from realizing the truth of it, of seeing that you have been created. Like, the very fact that these things can be created through you, to me, it shows that we can handle them. We can be with them. We can feel them. What we can't, often the thing that we struggle with a lot of the time, is when we innocently hold them down, and then it becomes chronic stress, or because we've been clinging on to it, and then the system starts to struggle, and there can be long-term issues with that. Feeling them in the moment and allowing them to flow again, that looks like really amazing and really powerful. So I think for a lot of people, that's the next part of the journey. When the pink cloud, in air quotes, disappears, there's often that process. And then we just find ourselves stepping into these new worlds every time we go through a process of feeling. We're like, oh my goodness me. And then all that stuff, that then the reasons we used to drink become the very things that set us free, which is crazy, but it looks true to me.
Yeah. Nice, mate. Nice.
Isn't that mad? That the very things that potentially are, the reason why it made sense for us to use those kind of innocently hurtful coping mechanisms, hurtful at the level of, the physical body, etc. They actually become quite literally the very thing that is the catalyst to true freedom. And they become the best part of being alive, feeling everything. The very thing that I used to be most afraid of is now the thing that I value more than anything else in the world. That's the thing I don't want to give up. I wouldn't want to give up feeling. All of it. All of it looks beautiful. All of it looks valid, even the uncomfortable stuff. And I forget that, by the way. But
yeah, we all do. But I literally nearly burst out in tears when you said that, because it's so true. It's such a hard conversation, because we see people day in, day out that are so afraid of feeling anything. And there's all of this talk about positive emotions and negative emotions and judgment around what's okay to include and what's not. And we're constantly trying to support people in removing the resistance to the whole thing. And it's so wonderful to see people have those really, gently and slowly have the realization that they can allow things to be as they are. And then what they learn from just that first foray into it then, as you say, you forget, but you also remember, and you remember that, well, I was okay. I included it. I was okay. I'm going to be okay the next time. And then you have this sense that just grows, that, as I said earlier, you can feel least okay and know that you're absolutely okay. And that's worth more than anything. And then the whole magic and mystery of life is open and available to you, because you're not afraid of meandering into any of it.
I think it's actually the access point to, for lack of a better term, higher states of consciousness, different states of
Correct.
consciousness.
Yeah,
because
correct.
the game that most of us play is, I should feel good all the time. I want to feel comfortable all the time. And innocently, we block ourselves from those states because the way to them, the door, the portal is feeling. And do you know what's really amazing? And I mean, I think I said this the other day, but one of the greatest sense of relief that I've had over the past few years is when I realized I don't have to play that game anymore. Oh my goodness me. Like, I don't have to play the game of trying to be okay all the time. Like, I don't have to try and control my feelings. I can just witness them and be with them and feel them. And I will orient back to that peaceful place if given time. Like, that was like, and then it was like something I couldn't have even dreamt of started happening, which is just, I don't know, just sort of found myself falling into those states, those beautiful feelings more and more often. And not turning that into a big deal either. Just like when they were there, enjoying them and not trying to like grasp onto them as much as possible. It's just a new way of living, I think. And so, yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? Look, throw us a bone, and within 15 minutes we're talking about something like this, but it looks like it's at the root of it, because for most people, that's what's, I think, is an element of what's going on.
100%. And you'll have had these same conversations that I've had with people, where every now and again it comes up, somebody says, yeah, but I just want that opportunity to have that altered state. It doesn't necessarily need to be with alcohol, but that there's some sense that you can only have that by imbibing something. And it's wild to think that you need nothing. You need absolutely nothing. I had a flotation yesterday for my birthday. Ooh. Well, not yesterday for my birthday, the day before. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And that as an experience, like whenever I have a flotation, it's freaking wild. It's really wild. And the last one, that, not this one, the one prior that I had like the most crazy experience. It, like, I can't even put words to it, and I've still done, and I can't exactly say I know what was going on, but it was incredible. And when I went into this one, there was that little sort of that sort of flavor of wanting to have the same kind of experience again. And as soon as I clocked it, I was like, well, that's the one thing that's going to stop me from having it, right? Trying to cling on to or orchestrate a certain situation. And so I checked it at the door, got in there, and then sure enough had like not the same experience, totally different experience, but equally, wild in terms of like being in a completely different and altered state. And then I'd gone into this extra long Jiva Mukti class afterwards. And Andrea, who my wonderful teacher, it was very much focused on pranayama. So we did a physical practice to prepare for the pranayama, what we were doing at the end. And again, like, just fell into this place. It was just utterly, it was just magical, absolutely magical. There's no way I could describe it, no way. But to have had that experience, and you kind of come out of it and you're in a bit of a daze, but you can't, like, I know that there's an old part of me that would have wanted to have clung on to that, like, oh God, I have to have that again. Like, that was amazing. But I don't play that game anymore. It's just like, and it doesn't always have to be in those situations. I mean, they're situations where there's probably good scientific reason why, these states are more available to us. But it doesn't have to be that you have a flotation and you have an experience, or you do some kind of breath work and have an experience. But they're very good conduits, I suppose. But it's like I just, even if you don't fully believe it right now, just have that like leap of faith that you don't need anything, not a thing.
So cool. I was recording for my little mini project, my little Rebel Spirituality project, recording a 10-minute riff on Do I Need to Meditate the other day. And, it's funny that what you say about you don't know, it might not be floating or in a yoga thing. It could be watching rain hit the window. It could be anything at all. It looks like everything is a portal. Everything is a portal into, well, actually, it's funny. It's like you're always there, but then these things look like portals. So what we do is we innocently misassign or ascribe those feelings to the scenario or whatever that we're in. So for example, we say, oh, it's that yoga class. It's when I'm hanging out with my dog. It's when I'm having a cup of tea on the sofa. It's when I'm doing this. It's when I'm listening to music, right? What's actually happening in that moment is we're just giving ourselves the permission to have less on our mind. And when we do that, whenever we're in the presence of whatever we're in the presence of, we can innocently think it's coming from outside of us, but it doesn't work like that. It can only come from within you. So those states, it's like a portal to the truth of you, and you're just feeling that. And we have like a superstition that, there's only some parts of my life where I can feel that. But the more you take those mini leaps of faith, the more you'll start to feel it. And like like ink falling on a piece of paper and it kind of just spreading.
Yeah.
Like it'll do that through your life. And if you start asking yourself the question, what if I just had a story that I can only feel like that in the woods or at yoga? What if it were possible for me to experience more of those states of being everywhere? What would life be like then? And just watch what happens. You might be surprised what you find. But I don't know if this is a nice place to leave it, mate. I feel like we've covered a lot of really cool stuff there. That was quite the download. But like a really practical thing that I'd love to offer to anybody who is at any point in their journey is to, when it occurs to you to do it, just actively remind yourself how incredible it is to wake up and feel great. It does not get old unless we forget how beautiful it is, and then we can just remember in an instant. So you hang on a minute, you're making a funny face at me. I thought
fucking tired, mate.
I thought you were messaging me because I got some. I don't know if everyone else could hear that, but there was an unprofessional ping of a.
Well, here's something else unprofessional that's about to happen.
Oh God, it's happened. The universe is making a message again. What's happening? Is it a delivery man?
It's like a delivery man. It's in the form of.
Is it a Darren?
Husband.
Right, I'll on that note, I've got away with not having to sing anything in it. So you go chat to the husband.
Next time.
See you in a bit.